Hi, so today we will be working on this piece, and if you look here, they are very soft at the edges and it's a very blur portrait with some chromatic aberration at the edges. But if you zoom closely, you can see that the texture and some of the details are actually sharp, which actually gives the illusions that it's very realistic. So this is the reference that we are working from, and I'm going to teach you today how to get this super soft, blurry, translucent skin effect. So if you see here, I have like a few versions right here that I've done to test out the technique, which this one didn't really work out because I didn't isolate the color properly. So basically it all depends on how you begin your workflow. So I'm going to demonstrate the entire workflow once more to show you like how it actually works. So we can see here everything is just one value, and they are the value of the lightest color or close to the lightest. So it's not this particular value that we are looking at here, but like the majority of the light color. So we are separating our values into light and dark, just two. Okay, so this is the light version. So you can see that okay, for this clothes here, it's just white without any shadow information. And the flowers is the same. We have the flowers without any shadow information. And then we have the hair. The main thing that's happening in this stage is after we have our sketch. So the sketch is where you solve all your drawing problems. You're not going to look at the drawing anymore after you have this stage done. So make sure you get all your drawing and proportions set out first. Then after that, we are going to create a new layer. Ignore the group because those are like my other layers. The main thing we want to do here is to actually identify the correct color for the skin tone here, the light color. And we also want to identify the correct color and the value. So you can actually just use any brush, but today I'm working with my Impasto brush packs, a dry square brush. So I am just throwing it in here and seeing which one I want to be my main color and swatch. So let's see. Oh, this one even more. Okay, so once you have the correct value and color, we are going to make sure we get the shape correct. After you get your shape correct, this is what you will actually get. And you can see here there's some variations of brushes that I've been using, and there are some marks here and there that are quite natural. So you want to make sure that you get a really precise color in the first place. I may have done it in 1 second, but you actually have to spend like however minutes you need to spend just to get that one accurate color. Okay, then after that you would do the same for the hair, the clothes, and the flower, or whatever object that you're doing. So this is what you will get for the first step. And once you have this, you do not want to worry anymore about the shape of these objects. Like I have clothes, hair, skin, flower. So I have them all in shapes, and if I just want to edit that particular color or value, I go to this exact shape, right? Go into the reference. So you would want to go into the face and then just note down the colors that you see. Like if you think you see green here or blue, you just note it down. And if you see orange, just do so, and red, and so on and so forth. So this is the way to do it. So let's say you are applying the color to the skin tone. So you just make a layer on top and clipping mask it. So when you clipping mask something, everything you paint will remain onto the shape that is below that you're clipping to, which is the skin. So it's convenient for you that way. You don't have to rework. And now you have the option of using the blending mode color. You can do this, or you can just adjust the color as you go. But if you use this layer, it's going to be a lot easier for you because you can basically like use any blue. Even if I push it to too dark or too black, it doesn't matter. It will just apply the color data to the skin tone, which is easier for you that way to recolor this piece. So let's say you want to paint blue for this area. First thing you want to do is make sure that fat spray brush is loaded into your Impasto brush pack and into your brush tool. So if you press hardly, you're gonna see it's like super blue, like alien blue. So what you want to do is just press softly. Then you just do it for everywhere you think has this color. Like here is blue, but I think it's a bit more green, so I'm just gonna swap it here. And then a very light touch is what you want to do. Okay. So this slider, I'm actually in the classic mode. It's very useful for you to navigate. Now I have pink in my swatch, right? But when I paint, hardly anything changes. So I can just slide the middle one. The middle one is the saturation. So here is gray, here is very vibrant. This one is dark and light. This one is change color. Okay. So I want this same color, but I just want it to be very vibrant because it's the ear. So I'm just gonna slide it over there. And there we go, look, it's just changing that way. And you can see here, it's shifting from red to orange and yellow over this part. So to simulate that, all we have to do is just to push this slider to change the color there, and you see that it's already orange and it's convenient that way. And then make sure this is colored, and then you can actually edit it and make it as vibrant as you want, depending on your desire, if you want it to be more realistic or if you want it to be semi-realistic. So if you just want back like the bottom part, like you see there's a hard shift here, you can use the dry square brush for a hard edge. So fat spray brush for soft edges, and this one for hard edge. So something like that would get you what you want. And then here it goes more red because we can clearly see here it's very gray, because how colors works, they work in relationships. So because there's this patch of color here, then it looks very gray. But if I don't have this patch here, you can see that it actually looks pretty okay. So let's try and get some color in here. Okay. And then this one goes a little bit yellow. So I have like a palette for me to change color and just to drop in everything. But I would say the most important color you can drop in are the reds, because of blood. Without red, everything just looks dead. So this is what you want. And then if you want to be a little bit more creative, you can of course change color to be different from the reference. But I would suggest that if you are just starting out, just stick with realism, which means it's just to copy. So we will continue doing this until you get a pretty tight representation of all the color changes. Like this is not acceptable at all because the edges are like spilling out, so you need to kind of clean it up. So like if you want blue here, just pick the same color and paint over. Yeah, make sure your edges are final and clean, and make sure you are like really sensitive towards color changes. Then once you are done, you have the option of actually making things more abstract. So if I want to make things more abstract, I just go over to hue, saturation and brightness and increase this. So this would actually increase like the luminosity of the whole portrait, and it looks a lot more fantastical compared to like a really subtle, realistic, washed out version. So it really depends on what you're going for. But the good news is you don't have to decide now. You can do this later on as well. So you can just keep it like this for now. Just try and represent the color as accurately as you can. Okay, let me show you what I have for my version. This is what I have. And what do you notice here that is different from what I told you just now? The difference is everything is the same value except for lips and the eyes. Previously in this version, I didn't do that. I didn't put in any object color information into the portrait, and I was having a lot of problems with that. So I decided to redo this entire workflow, and that's where I came up with the second one. So if there are any odd patches on the face, like maybe a pimple or a accessory or marks or lips or eyes or makeup that is of a different color and value, note it here first. Just make sure you note the lighter version. So like for the eyes, I note the lighter version. The value doesn't have to be exactly the same. It's just your color has to be really accurate. And the same for the face, you gotta be pretty accurate, but I decided to choose a more orangey version for the lips instead of a pink blue version for this. Okay, so after you have done that for the face, make sure you do the same for the hand and all the other skin patches as well. You can really just take your time. I took about 2 days getting to this point because I was like figuring things out. So yep, tutorials take a long time. Okay, for anything, the hair or the face, if you see like the main color is like pink here, right? But it goes blue or green here. Every time it goes to an opposite color that you think it's green or blue, always try gray first. Like instead of using blue here, use this. This is like oatmeal, but it's very gray because it's all the way to the left. Look, it's all the way to the gray, right? So use anything, any color, push it here first. Try that first. If that works, use that. If you want to exaggerate, then use the color version. Like if you see green, just use green. If you see blue, just use blue. So same goes for the hair. Like you see the hair is yellow here, red here. So red is mostly here and in these highlights, right? So red is here. And then for the better part of it is black. When it's black, it's always gray. So the more black it is, the gray is going to be. So it's more gray here. And here it shifts to kind of blue. Let me show you. Yeah, it's in the blue palette. All right, so that means it's already blue. Okay, so it's blue because if you zoom in here, I can feel it's blue. Yeah, so just use what you feel because it's impressionistic and it should be an expression, an artist's expression. For the clothes, I'm not sure if you can see it in the camera, but here is actually yellow. Like if I show it here, you can see this is yellow, and this is a different color. Yeah, so go for very subtle changes that your eye can barely detect. So you should see like a same value kind of rainbow here first before you proceed. Okay, and make sure that all the edges are final. Like what you see here is what you're gonna get at the end. Okay, no more changes after that. So this is the first step. Make sure you have all your color information before you move on to the next. So for the second step, this is what you get at the end of the day. You have a shadow shape, but the shadow shape is extremely soft in edges. So you can see that there are two types of edges. If I turn off the sketch, that's the soft edge. These are all soft, very soft, and that's hard edge. Okay, there's hard edges here. So you only need 2 brushes to do this. The soft brush, you use the fat spray brush. For carving, erasing, or using hard edges, you use the dry square brush. Okay, and ignore the flower. This is like completely wrong. I did it wrongly this time during this time of painting on exploration. So now I will demo to you how I create this shape. So to create this shape, for example, for the clothes, I'm just gonna make a new layer on top and hit clipping mask, and then here, very important, I'm gonna hit multiply. So when you're on multiply mode, make sure you are working with very light colors. I have my very light colors here, and I can just do this. Okay, once I have the color information in already, I can compare. Like I can see the blue here and I don't like this blue, so I can shift it and change it to be a more purpley one. So If you work like me, which means that you identify color through the current relationships, this is what you can do. Just lay down anything first, anything, and then work from there. Then, because I have my shapes here already, I'm just going to use the alpha lock to lock the shape and get this done. Alright, so once you have the shadow color like this already, it's time to start working on the shape. So to work on the shape, don't use the eraser and erase this, because this is like a one-way street and you can't undo. Yeah, so use mask, and when you erase, use the dry square brush. So I will actually do this. And at this stage, you want a modeling rendition. So you just want to represent the shape and not the details. So if it's a cylinder, make sure it looks like a cylinder. If it's a cube, looks like a cube. So this one, I can see that it has something straight here, and this is too bright, so I'm gonna tone this down a little bit. Okay, let's just keep it like this. And when you smudge, use a fat spray. Smudge, fat space, fat spray brush. Get the shape correct. When you're smudging, try and make the decision whether you want that edge to be soft or hard. Like, I want to keep this hard, I want this soft. Personal preference, but be consistent. So if you just keep lines on this side hard, maybe you can repeat it somewhere so that there's a repetition, or it will look chaotic. Okay, so this one I think gotta be a lot higher, so I'm just gonna push it up. And here it's a lot darker than I would want, so I'm just gonna use the eraser and make sure I'm in my fat spray brush. Just these two brushes is enough for you to get past this stage. Alright, just like that, you have your mask information here, which controls how this looks. So black means that it's not showing, white means that it's showing. Okay, so you would paint black or use the eraser when you want to hide something, and then you would paint white if you want it to show. Okay, now let's work on the face. So for the face, basically this is the skin and the color, and look at how many shadows I have, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with layer mask. I kept all these so that I can show you guys what is happening. So let's say this is the color, so this is the skin that we have, and I have my color layer because I wanted a more fantasy approach and more colorful approach compared to a more realistic one. So I have this layer here. It's up to you if you want to have it. And then I have my shadow, which looks like this. So after painting the layer mask, it became like this. So every single layer actually has different color information. So I'm creating multiple layers in multiply mode, holding different colors and creating each shadow shape. Like you see, this one has a hard edge here, okay, and then this is even more darker. Yeah, but each one I have a mask, and then I merge it, and then I keep editing and editing until it's really close to realism. So what you want to do is to freely use as many layers as you want, to keep stacking multiply layers to create your shadow layer. But the most important thing is to capture the modeling, and it's not very apparent here, but I can show you how we do it. So let me just turn this on and explain to you. Okay, so this is our target and our references here. Okay, at a glance, this is the shape of the shadow, and then the rest are just gradients. Okay, and if you look at the hand, it's very simple. It's just here. Okay, for the hand, for things that you do not want to draw attention to, you can actually reduce the number of values. So for here, it's easier. You just have it like this. Okay, but this is super easy, but you would use this to gradually make it darker. See, very quick, very easy. And for here, well, if we soften this up, okay, this would be a good shape. So for edges that are soft, soften it up. And if you want it to be sharp, like here, you decide that you want it to be sharp, so just sharpen it up. So I like to have this fab spray brush loaded into my smudge tool to soften edges, and eraser to the dry square brush to have hard edges. So let's say here, hard, a little bit, soften it out a little bit, but still hard. Okay, this one I want it hard. Okay, but I can see here it's soft. So I'm going very fast because this is a tutorial, but you should have a real journey on your own. You know, this is your time, your walk, your journey and your adventure, so shouldn't be like mine. And of course here is a lot more detailed than what I have here, but basically 2 brush is enough to get you very far. Okay, let's talk about the face. If I soften everything, is it enough for us to proceed? Sometimes you gotta like really work small details to get the results that you want. Okay. So with this one shade, you're telling the light and shadow story. Okay. Once you have done the face like this, doing the rest like the hair and the clothes, it's gonna be very easy because you have the skill already. Okay, for the eye, so just try and reduce to simple forms in order to get your shape right, like a very simple form in order to get the 3D shape right. So this is essentially what it is, and it's too dark, so I'm just going to turn it down because you can see here it's barely visible. So let's turn it down. This is closer to where it is. I don't suggest that you color this layer, okay, because this is a pretty important layer. So make sure that whatever color this is in, make sure that it is something universal that can be applied to remain to the end of the painting. So it's not going to be like bright green or pink, you know, it's going to be like warm brown, so yellow. Okay, so now the next thing to do is to add another layer, set it back to multiply, and it has to be a clipping mask. So everything is clipping to the same skin. Okay, and now here's where things get fun. We saw all the colors, right? Use the same color and use it to shade. Like I'm using blue right now, but it's coming out this shade, so I don't really like it. So this either. So if you don't like something, like I don't like that this is so gray, I'm going to push this to the right so that it's not so gray but it's still too dark. So I can just push this brighter, even brighter. Okay, this is something I can work with because I can just go lightly. Okay, I can see that here is a bit more gray and here is very pink, so I can just add on here. Be very careful, don't go too heavy-handed, like, or else it's gonna look very difficult. So as usual, smudge away what you don't want or erase. And then here I can see it's supposed to be a lot darker, so let's get another color and drop it in. Okay, so you will actually keep doing this, adding layers, stacking, and sometimes you would stop, go back to the previous layer and change the color, add color. Yeah, so that is what you would do. Okay, I'm not even defining the line yet, I'm just shading. I'm just trying to get it to be the value. So go slowly, and the shadow is in the bottom half of the nose, so we would actually have to add another layer if I'm not mistaken. But if it starts to overlap what you already have in the layer, you can go and create another layer, because if you don't, you're gonna end up losing a lot of progress as you, because you're doing a lot of painting and erasing. you know. Okay, and here is slightly less, and then the rest would be a soft blend. Okay. For important shapes like this, it's easier if you do it on another layer, because you will find that important shapes like this, you will need to recolor them. Like I can see here is blue, red, blue, maybe orange, you know. So now I only have one color and it's very difficult for me to recolor. So if I want to recolor, I have to alpha lock this, go to blue, and slowly shade it. But this only works if you have a palette that is of like similar value, or else you're gonna end up with a whole nightmare. Okay, I'm gonna demonstrate another layer of for the eyes before I show you how I did the rest. If you want to quickly just add clipping mask, when you already have a few, add it in between like sandwich, so it's auto clipping mask already, but you still have to change it to multiply mode. And then let's shade the eyes. And I think I want it go that way. Shade it up a bit. Okay, this is where the highlight starts. The more precise you are in observing, the more realistic your output will be. Okay, like here, there's a pouch because it's a bit droopy, the eyes, so we can represent that. Okay, clean it up with the soft brush. Then when you're done with the shade, it's easier to just alpha lock it. Do your color changing first. So here in the tear duct is pink, here is slightly pink, yeah, and that is orange, is pink, and then here I would want some purples. Okay, you can use the color zones if you want, like they say that above is like yellow, down is like blue, blah blah blah. You can use those. And this is blue. When you're changing color, try not to paint with such a small brush. Use a bigger one so that you can't tell where it begins and where it ends, or else it's going to be very obvious. Okay, so this is what I want, and we are going to lower the opacity until it hits the sweet spot, and then turn off alpha to continue editing the... So this is what you would do, just continue stacking and stacking and stacking and stacking. Make sure that at the end of the day you have one shadow shape. Okay, so just one shadow shape. You don't want 2 or 3. So do that for every single layer, and you will end up with something like this. Like there's just a very subtle shape of shadow over her face with some harsh edges somewhere. Then for the hair, it's the same workflow. It's just different brushes. Like here, I use a lot of texture brush for erasing, or rig brush. Like you see here, these are rig brush. So after that, you would want to proceed to the next step, which is the third step. So your goal for the end of step 3 is to have a very functional painting that you can almost just deliver as a final output. So what I mean is you will have this, and this. Okay, so if I turn off the sketch, you can see it almost stand alone already, like it's just blur and without details, but the form is there, the modeling is there, the shadows are there, the color is there as well. So this is actually just one more layer. Like for the hair, I'm just adding one more layer of shadow, which is a lot darker than the one before. So in total, we will have 3 values. So for the hair, this is first value, second value, which is step 2, and this is step 3. That's it. That's it. All you have to do is that with every shadow shape, you get the color correct and you get a beautiful shape. That's all I ask. This is step 1, just the color information. This is step 2, 1 shadow, and step 3. So step 3 is where you really define, like the eyes is a sphere, you know, and then there is a dark line here and dark line here, and the ear is shaded. Everything is ready for delivery. It's just a matter of time. All you need to do is just invest time to complete this piece. But everything is already done. The color is done, the value is done. Okay, so this is your goal for the next step, which is to get to another value that is darker but still pretty soft. Okay, the technique is exactly the same. You would just continue laying, multiply layers until you get to this point. So the techniques involved usually involves in recognizing shapes and modeling them according to the shape. Yeah, so those can only be acquired through experience, so I suggest that you spend your time to get until this point. Once you get to step 3, you will be ready to go to the next stage. This is the next stage, step 4. And I'm going to show you the difference between step 4 and 3. So step 3, you have all the shadow information done already. You decide how dark is your darkest. You have modeled all the shapes out. The sphere looks like a sphere, the pyramid looks like a pyramid, tubes looks like tubes, lips looks like lips. In step 4, you will actually be editing the shadows in order to create light and fine-tuning everything else so that it looks closer to the final touch. So for example, you can see here the color is a lot stronger here. Like here is a lot more defined, and here is a lot darker. Here is also a lot darker. Okay, and then the lips has more information on highlights. Like here has highlights information. Okay, so you will actually not be painting highlights, but you'll be erasing them. So far we have one information about highlights here, and we'll be adding more here. So, and how are we gonna do that? Okay, let's recap. This was our step 1 with the color. I've edited here to be more saturated, okay, in order to give a more vibrant representation of the light hitting her face. Okay, then we have our shadow, which we have done in the previous layer. So from this layer, you can merge all of them into one. So if you have like 20 multiply layers for shadow, just merge them all into one and create a mask. Okay, create the mask. And then what you want to do is, using this mask, paint in the light using the eraser. Use the eraser and carve out the light. So I'm carving out the light. Okay, carve out the light. Once you have carved out the light, get your edges correct so that they are as soft or as hard as you want them to be. Okay, and then for here, you can really start to identify Cupid's bow just by erasing and painting on the mask layer, something like that. And then if I turn off the sketch, you can see that this and this is like completely different shapes. So we need to address all these differences now. Try not to use the hard edge brush if you are just trying to rush through things. Then for the nose, try and find a brush that is pretty abstract. You just scribble in the highlight, and you turn off the sketch and take a look. It seems like it's not obvious enough, so I think I'm going to merge the mask and start a new one. I would also need my sketch, so trying to just get, okay, now this is a lot more obvious. And then after that, just continue to tighten up every single step, not every single layer, but every single step. So your step 1, which is your color, your step 2, which is your first shadow, and your step 3, which is your second shadow. And then by means of erasing, you're actually introducing highlights and texture at the same time, because texture usually resides where the highlights are. So this is where you can put in all the highlights. We're using textures. So for erasing, you can use the wet grunge brush, texture brush, the dry square brush, and if you have my noise brush pack, you can use Fat Nebula and Nickel Roll, or if you have my Portrait Brush Pack 2022, there's a really great brush here, which is a grainy painting brush. Then for the lips, she's actually over painting her lips, like how I'm over painting mine. My lips end here, but I'm painting it over, so her lips actually ends here, and here where the white line is, but she is over painting it and she's over painting the above. So the way to achieve that is, here is basically the value of your skin, it's just in a different color, so it's the same brightness. That's why here is brighter than the lip, so it's just a different color. It's just this instead of the skin color, we are applying the lip color here a little bit, okay? And as it goes towards to the shadow, you can see it gets almost green or yellowish and blue, yeah, which is why I've represented it with purple. Then this line is the most difficult technical part that you need to get past, because it actually has a highlight that defines her actual lip shape. So this is actually where her lips ends, and you can do that using my old Portrait brush pack. I have this brush, but I can't find it here. It actually looks like this, okay? So this brush is very easy. Look for it in my old brush pack. It's free anyway, so you can just come here and put in like that, okay? So you have all your lip line ready. So easy, you know. Then change it to alpha lock. Very easy. Just get back to the fat spray brush and start testing colors. And if you don't know how to test the colors, go to hue, saturation, and brightness. Change the color. Okay, try to match this color. Okay, change it, make it darker so that it's okay. Is it more vibrant? Okay, let's get color correct. Okay, once you have it, just use the fat spray brush to erase away the top parts, just like that. There we go. Okay, then make sure it goes like that, right? At the end, this one is the exact same color as the skin. It always ends in the same value and the exact same color, almost. Okay, so this one shouldn't be like completely different from here. Okay, if it is, you're on the right track, baby. Or if it is, you're on the wrong track, baby. And then for the eyes and the nose, start to identify where you want things to be sharp. Like here, I have things very sharp here, and here is extremely sharp, because I know that I'll be doing a lot of manual painting later on, so it's very sharp. And here, I don't have any hair here yet, because here I'm planning to use another brush just to drop in the hair. Okay, so I don't want to do that at this point. Okay, but this is like almost done. Okay, so this is step 4 going to step 5. Here I've just redid the flowers, and the difference is there are 1, 2, 3 flowers, right? So I make sure that one flower here, it looks like a cylinder. So here is bright and here is dark, and then this flower here is like a cylinder with this as the flat top. Okay, because previously it was like completely wrong. It was like this. Okay, yeah. So when you are lost and things looks wrong, go back to basic shapes. And then here is just like, I don't know what's going on here, but yeah, something like that. So here, make sure that here is dark, and then I made sure this was dark, and this is dark, okay, this is dark. So this is how I shaded this first, and then I dropped in hard edge lines for the petals and maintaining the hard edge for very light sections of the flowers. So for like darkish areas of the flowers, I'm leaving it soft. So at the end of it, I will have something like that. So this is all done using just the dry square brush, and I just carve it away with the eraser. And the technique I use for this is the exact same thing I use for the face. Now moving back to the face, this is where we ended up, and our goal right now is to repaint everything, because we have all the information we need already. We have all the colors, we have all the shadows, every shadow is in place, every color is in place, every highlight is in place. All we have to do is to create a new layer. Okay, so let's say this is my skin layer. I've merged everything into one layer, and all the hair is also merged into one layer, the clothes as well. So all I did is to create a new layer, and then I pick colors and I paint. I pick the correct brush, and then I add information to it. Like for example here, supposed to have more information here, and then here supposed to be brighter, and then I will just carve it. Then I will continue just picking colors because I have all the colors I want already. So easy. What more can I ask, right? Okay, and then just carve it out. And I go on like this for every single layer. So I will have this at the end of the day, which is the clothes. I added lines here. It's just very simple repainting and some soft shapes here to blend into the background. Okay, then for the hair, this was what I have. In the end, it became like this with all the hair strands. So all I did was use the special effects brushes to put in the detail that I want into the hair. Okay, so I put it in this layer above everything else, which means it's above the skin because I can't put it above the hair anymore because the skin is blocking it, so it has got to be on top. So let me just demonstrate for you how I did the hair. For the hair, I use a lot of brushes for my portrait brush pack. So for my portrait brush pack, I have a couple of brushes for hair. So for hair waves, this is how it looks like. Hair round is like one strand. Okay, so you use this at the end of the day. Hair flat is when you want like highlights. Like for example, if you want to just put highlights like this, yeah, it's very simple to put. Okay, so this is hair waves, and then hair fine was the popular one last time. Everyone loved this brush. I honestly don't know why, but they like it because you can use this to do hair, to do eyebrows. I can just do like this and cut it out, and then like that. So I'm doing a very quick demo, but obviously you have to go through your own undos and everything, you know. Yeah. So this is what you can do with this brush, okay? And then so you would just want to pick the color, pick the brush, repaint. Pick the color, repaint. And then here, decide if you want baby hair, and then how it starts from the root, and then just increase the brightness. It's very easy because all the colors are already here, because you have already figured out all the colors one by one. And then here, right here, I'm just gonna pick this gray. When I'm ready, I'm gonna go to hair waves, add in details. Like here, there's one long strand, right? So, okay, just something like that. Then for here, this is what I did. I used the natural sketch brush and picked the color of the highlight. It's a bit more complex, the braid, because it's like twisted. So if I paint here, it's the exact same color. So I'm just going to increase the value to be brighter, and then I just paint like that. Okay. And then for here, I paint and I see that it's a completely different color. So I'm going to try and change the color and match it a little bit. I think gotta be a bit brighter because this is like something, okay, darker but more vibrant. not really worried about the blending yet. Okay, once you have something like this, go over to your smudge tool and pick the red brush. And you gotta spend your time with this. Turn it really small and zoom in and do your highlights. If you notice here, this is where I'm at. You can tell where it's hard edge and soft. Like here is soft, here is soft, here is hard, here is hard. So simulate the same thing. Just open your eyes and look. Then here, this is where I'm at, this part. If you paint halfway and realize the color is wrong, it's fine. Just get the shape correct first and correct the color later on. Okay? So once you have something like that, you would want to alpha lock it and adjust the value. Like this is too bright. Let's see. Better but too dark. Yeah, this is a lot better. It takes a few tries to get the exact match so that it doesn't disturb with the rest of the painting. So go on like that for the whole highlights of your hair. You can just adjust it like that. Just paint the shape of the highlights and then just smudge it out using the raker brush to edit the hair. So once you're done, you have something like this for the hair. And now let's talk about the hands. This was where my hands were at previously. All I did was changed the nail to be longer and the hands, and it was a very soft rendering, meaning I can't really tell where the knuckle begins in my painting yet because it's not very apparent, and I'm gonna have to try and repaint this whole piece to represent them. So the most important thing about hand is to represent the shape and the model. So for here, it's actually like that, and then this part is cylindrical. So every single piece of hand looks like that actually. So you can see here it's like that. Can you see the shape? Like it's all like that. Yeah. So that's the contour of the hand. It turns like that, but here is actually straight, you know. But here is like that. You know what I mean? And then I try to make sure that at least it has 3 faces. How do I ensure that? Okay. So this is a cylinder. Okay. I ensure that by making sure that at the sides here is darker and in the center is brighter. So it looks cylindrical at least for every single digit. And then don't confuse yourself between modeling and cast shadows. Like this is a cast shadow, and then this is the thumb, which goes like this. So this is actually a shadow. The only reason why you're having so much problem with all these is because all these photos are heavily filtered to remove modeling shapes and shadows and light and forms, because that's what we perceive aesthetic in beauty and beauty standards in today's society. Like everything has to be washed up flat, you know. So all you're doing as an artist is introduce back the 3D modeling to the face while maintaining the features. Like here everything just looks flat. Like, this is added in, you know, this is all added in. All this, like it's so much darker here because it's added in purposely, and like this as well, in order to emphasize the shape of the face, that this is like a cylinder, this is like a square. So you know, this is a square, this is a square that folds here, and this is a cylinder. So we are just trying to emphasize this when we paint it, so that the viewer can see for themselves like the real modeling for what it is. We are not copying exactly the same. We're trying to create artwork, right? So at the end of the day, this is what I have for my hands. I added lines in between, and I added even more heart shapes in between to emphasize that there are 3 joints. Like the joint is 1, 2, and 3. So before I painted that, it was just like one cylinder. Yeah, so I added like information like this is darker, so it is folding in, but it has some highlights, you know. And then here is the knuckle, and this is also a knuckle. So this is how it works. And then for the nails, I didn't even bother putting in the information that here should be darker, because when you zoom out, it just fits, like the whole thing just fits. You don't have to worry about all this because you're trying to like symbolize something. I'm just trying to suggest there's a hand there, not trying to pull attention to the hand. But if someone decides to just look at it, oh, they get like, oh, this is nice, like blue going to pink and not much value going on, and then the nails are shiny. But if they don't look, they can barely notice it, you know. But the real reason you're here is the face. Like, what do you do with the face? So you just finish up the face in this stage 5. So in this stage, you are filling in the blanks, the lashes, the details, all the highlights. You are finishing the painting. It's very simple. It's just a little bit to go. Everything is ready here for you. All you have to do is just repaint. Yeah, just create a new layer and pick colors and paint. Like here, it's supposed to be darker, more red. Pick colors and paint. Make sure that the edges are correct. And then for the eyes, okay, use the brush, this hair round brush, to draw lashes. Keep the lashes very thin so that it's like a contrast. But the lashes goes like that. Okay, so if you want it to go up, you point upwards that way. But I'm pointing down because her eyes are a bit like Asian hooded. Just use the natural sketch brush to do this. Draw a line like that, and then just plan out the lashes, and then repaint her entire eyelid. So I can see that here goes like that. Okay, and then just pick colors and get to where you want things to end. And then here is obviously wrong, so fixing and tightening all the information. When you're ready, drop really small into the brush, put in your lower lashes, put in a few here. You can see that the contrast of blur versus sharp is very striking. Like, it draws your eye in almost immediately. So you're going to use this to your advantage. Use the sharp edge to draw people's attention. If you want something thicker or thinner, it really depends on you. Depends on your current aesthetic and style. But at the end of the day, real small, grab a light color and go over some of the lashes where you think the light will catch. Like, the light is coming here, right? So it's probably going to catch here. Okay. Now, whenever you have sharp lines like this, don't merge down at the end of the day, so that you can blur everything else and keep this sharp. So you have that effect of like very sharp lines standing out against blurred portrait. So you're going to do this and tighten up the whole painting just by picking color and repainting. And for these eyes as well. And once you are done, you're going to end up with something like this. This was done using texture brush. All these textures were done using a texture brush. Tear ducts has like a few layers, so there is one layer here, and then after that the lashes sit on the next layer, which is another line. See, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1, 2 lashes on the second one, and then the swollen thing that everyone likes, agio sol, I think that's what they call it, and then the last dip here. Okay, so make sure you get all the elements. You don't have to go very sharp in this layer. The reason why you've been spending so much time in all the previous layer is so that you can just partially detail certain areas to stand out. Like, I didn't detail this area, I didn't really detail this area or this at all. So it's, you see, it's quite sparse, you know. So you don't have to detail everything. You're detailing what you want people to focus on. Yeah, but I always like detailing the ear, so I did the ear. So once you have done detailing and repaint your entire painting, you're going to end up with something like this. Next thing to do is to put reflections and highlights. So for reflections, usually it's in the eye, and it's very easy to do. I can see that the reflection here is on the above the eye, and I'm not going to put any highlights onto the eye for this matter, and I'm just going to use the fat spray brush and just paint over, and like that. Then after that, I'm just going to erase away this part, erase away the lashes area, and then I'm going to just cut it half, harsh line. Okay, so you can like something like that, and then you just lower the opacity. There you go, reflections. So just lower the opacity until you think it's natural, which is what I have here. So very subtle, very natural, and then after that, I can see here it's brighter, it's still the same value. So I added one more highlight here to bring it up a little bit, and I added more highlights here and here for the lips. Then after that, I feel like this is the completed painting and I'm ready to go to the next step. So step 6, right? So for step 6, when you have a painting that you would usually normally call it done, that's when you are ready to move on to step 6. So you would actually just hit this, that, and copy canvas. Once you press copy canvas, you're going to paste it above everything else. This was the group of like layers that I have before. Or here, I copy and pasted this. So this is exactly what I have. Okay, so now this is the step where it gets fun, because we get to actually apply all the effects. So just ignore all these above. I'm going to redo everything. Take it out alpha lock, it over to Gaussian blur, and blur it. Blur the painting. So it's blur already. Once it's blur, apply a mask and erase what you want to remain with the fat spray brush. I want this to remain sharp. This is where I say that if you have the lashes layer, which I don't, I've already merged it, you can just bring it above this layer. You don't even have to erase. Yeah, but basically every layer that has like, you know, details of texture, you want it restored. And areas without texture, you can just leave it be. Some of the ear maybe, remove this to make it feel like this is closer to the camera. And then some of the nail, okay, something like that. It is up to you, really up to you. So after you've done editing your blurry rendition, you are going to do your final touches. So do your touch-ups. I'm just editing a few patchiness here and here. I'm just starting to put the final highlight. Reserve this for last. I did this highlight using this one, and then I restored back the shadow lines here, because by adding this highlight I lost the lashes lines, so I restored that a little bit here, which is why I say maintain your layers. I couldn't do that because everything is spanned across projects. And then I have a color layer, which is right here, very strong one. And then I have another color layer for the background. Because the background is just gray, it's not very interesting, I use the fat nebula brush from my noise brush pack to put in all these little artifacts here to give it a little bit of color, but still gray, you know, so it merged with everything at the back. You don't want a background that is very sharp, because your painting is blurred. So if your background is sharp, it looks weird, like you're pulling attention to the background instead of the portrait. Yeah, so you got to be careful about that. Then after that, after you're done like dealing with your background, make sure everything is completed, copy canvas again and paste. You are going to go to chromatic aberration and just shift it. So you can see that it shifted it red, green, blah 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 here. So this is what I have, and of course you need to use the mask and reduce it a little bit, like certain areas where it starts to repeat a lot or it's just too sharp, you need to kind of just tone it down a little bit. Yeah, especially the fingers. Look, I can't see anything anymore, so but I like how it looks, so I'm keeping a little bit, but not all, okay, for the chromatic aberration. And then after that, you will want to throw in your last highlights, which are these. So when you're doing highlights, you are going to experiment a lot with textures. So when it comes to textures, you have a few options. You can use a fat nebula brush. Let me show you how it looks like. Just create a layer. Color dodge or screen is okay. Make sure you're using dark colors like this. Yeah, so this is fat nebula. Yeah, so you want something that has texture. You don't want something that is flat. It's going to be very hard to control. Okay, so if you want something more uniform, you can use spray brush like this. Okay. If you want something funky, use this highlights speckle. Okay, let me show you. It's going to be like that. Then you just erase the parts you want with a noisy brush. Let's see if I have a noisy brush. With a fat nebula brush. Okay, there, something like that. Okay, or you can use the grainy painting brush from my portrait brush pack. So you can have this texture, or you can have the skin highlight. Yeah, skin highlight is what I used here. Okay, so it gives a, and here as well. So this is a skin. Oops, let me just, this is a very subtle brush. Yeah, so skin. So we can put it in areas of highlights. Don't put it in areas of shadows. Not good. And then adjust the scale if you need to, and then erase it if it's too much. Then this is how you put highlights. If you want to, you can even add more, be subtle. Like this is too much, so make sure you reduce it. Like if you're using such a big area, right, make sure you're really OCD in getting rid of parts of it that you don't want. Okay? Especially, you see it's overlapping the hair, which it shouldn't. Make sure it's not doing that, especially in shadow areas. It can be very unsightly. Like that, it looks very natural. Be very gentle with this. Super gentle, super subtle. Then you can also add freckles. So for freckles, make a new layer. Head over to the freckles texture brush in the Portrait 2022 brush pack, and then get a salmony, dark salmony color, and then just paint first. Don't worry about anything else. Yeah, I can see here it's a lot pinker, so but we can just change the color. There we go. Make it more subtle, and there we go. This is the painting at the end. Once you have added all the highlights and everything, and you can even add impasto to this painting after this if you want to. Yeah, if you're ready for another long session. But yeah, this is it. A very soft, natural painting. It can be natural. Natural painting would be like this. More natural, less color changes. Or you can really go to town with the color, or shift it, and you will still stay pretty okay. Just sharing the workflow in case anyone wants to learn. And you can get the brushes from my website, hazelong.com, and see you next time. Okay, bye.